Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home, or you are seeking comfort and connection in these uncertain times, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth in love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us matters and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our oneness, our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many points of connection in the Show More section, including credits for the readings and music, and links to virtual religious education, for donations, and to be added to our email newsletter list. We have a few announcements this morning. We hope that you'll join our Wednesdays on the Lawn, hosted by the Faith Formation Force. This week, we will have a chalk labyrinth in the parking lot to walk. Come at 5:30 p.m. with your picnic dinners, chairs if you like, and your open hearts. This is an event for all ages. We will be returning to the UCE Sanctuary on September 12th for our annual ingathering and water communion. Look for more information on our website and in the newsletter. We'll hold a virtual coffee and conversation after this service for 30 minutes on Zoom. You may find the link in the Show More section or from the newsletter. Today, we welcome Reverend Karen Mooney as our guest minister. You may remember her from her time with our congregation as the Director of Congregational Life in the spring and summer of 2020. She is currently working as the Executive Co-Director for the UU Advocacy Network of Illinois, piloting a program in anti-racist capacity building that builds brave spaces for reflection within congregations. Reverend Karen joins us today as an expression of her love of UU communities, which she experiences as places where you find people who are alive and seeking throughout their lives. And now I invite you to get your chalices ready, set a place for yourself and your family as we join in beloved community.
Risk by Lisa Colt. My teacher says, "You've got to stink first." I tell her, I don't have time to stink. At 64 years old, I go directly to perfection or I go nowhere. Perfection is nowhere, she says, so stink. Stink like a beginner. Stink like decaying flesh. Old blood, cold sweat. She says, I know a woman who's 86 and last year she learned how to dive.
The Unitarian Church of Evanston sits on the traditional and current homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox, have and continue to call this area home. We name these in honor and respect for the land, all the animals and plants that have lived on and through the land, and all people who have been and remain a part of the earth. Our shared faith calls us to name these as one small effort toward greater accountability, deeper relationship, and mutuality with our communities, our ancestors, and our descendants. Please join in saying the words printed on your screen, a poem titled Come, Come, with words adapted from Rumi by the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. Come, come, whoever you are. Come with your hurts, your imperfections, your places that feel raw and exposed. Come, come, whoever you are. Come with your strengths that the world shudders to hold. Come with your wild imaginings of a better world. Come with your hopes that it seems no one wants to hear. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, we will make a place for you. We will build a home together. Ours is no caravan of despair. We walk together. Come, yet again come. Please join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. The needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Our story today is a longer story that Kathy Underwood has adapted into a shorter version for our service. You are invited, as you are moved, to read it in its entirety.
Today's Time for All Ages is The Name Jar by Young Suk Choi. Through the school bus window, Eunhae looked out at the strange buildings and houses on the way to her new school. It was her first day, and she was both nervous and excited. Is that for show and tell? A boy asked Unhei. No, it's mine. Are you new here? What's your name? Unhei, said Unhei. Uni? Asked a girl. Uni, some kids chanted. No, Unhei corrected. It's spelled U-N-H-E-I. It's pronounced Une. Oh, it's you-hey, said a boy. Like you-hey. Or what about hey you? Just then, the bus pulled up to the school and the doors opened. Unhei hurried to get off. Unhei stood at the doorway of her new, noisy classroom. Aren't you going in? Asked a curly-haired boy. You're the new girl, right? Unhei nodded, and before she could walk away, the boy grabbed her hand and pulled her through the door. Here's the new girl, he announced so loudly that the teacher, Mr. Kokotos, almost dropped his glasses. Mr. Kokotos thanked him and greeted Unhei. Please welcome our newest student, he said to the class. She and her family just arrived from Korea last week. Unhei smiled broadly and tried not to show her nervousness. What's your name? Someone shouted. Unhei pictured the kids on the bus. I haven't picked one yet, she told the class, but I'll let you know by next week. As Mr. Kokotos showed her to her desk, she felt many round, curious eyes on her. Why doesn't she have a name? Someone whispered. Maybe she robbed a bank in Korea and needs a new identity, a voice said. When she got home after school, her mom asked her about her day. Unhei said, I think it would be best. I think I would like my own American name. Her mother looked at her with surprise. Why, Unhei is a beautiful name. Your grandma and I went to a name master for it. But it's so hard to pronounce, Unhei complained. I don't want to be different from all the American kids. You are different, Unhei, her mother said. That's a good thing. Unhei just wrinkled her nose. That evening, Unhei stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Hi, my name is Amanda, she said cheerfully, wrinkled her nose. Hi, my name is Laura. Maybe not. Her smile turned down. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt right. I don't think American kids will like me, she worried as she began to brush her teeth. The next morning when Unhei arrived at school, she found a glass jar on her desk with many pieces of paper in it. Unhei took one out and read it aloud. Daisy. That's my baby sister's nickname, said Cindy, who sat next to her. Unhei took out the rest of the paper. Tamala, she read. I got it from a storybook, said Nate. Unhei nodded and unfolded another piece. Wednesday? Yeah, you came here on Wednesday, said Ralph. Thank you for your help, said Unhei. Ralph quickly said, we'll put more names in, and you can pick out whatever you like, or pick them all, and you'll have the longest name in history. When Unhei got home from school that day, her little brother ran to give her a letter. It was from her grandma. She opened it quickly. It said, To my Unhei, I hope you are enjoying your new school and new friends. Be sure to help your mother and your little brother. Here the moon is up, but there the sun is up. No matter how far apart we are, and no matter how different America is from Korea, you'll always be my Unhee, your grandma forever. Unhee took out her wooden stamp and filled a paper with it. She thought for a long time in front of the bathroom mirror. On Monday, Mooney came to class early to look at the names one last time, but the jar wasn't on her desk. Instead, there was just a single piece of paper with a name on it. Mooney slipped it into her pocket. "Where's your name jar?" Ralph asked as soon as he saw it was gone. "I don't know," Mooney said. "It wasn't on Mr. Kokotis's desk or on any other desk, and it wasn't on the counters or any of the shelves." As other kids arrived, they helped look. Soon Mr. Kokotis came in, and Ralph shouted at him, "The name jar is gone, the jar with all the names in it." "Gone?" Mr. Kokotis replied. With a look of concern, he asked Mooney, "Did you get a chance to read all the names?" Mooney nodded. She took a breath. "I'm ready to introduce myself." Mooney wrote her name in both English and Korean on the chalkboard. "I like the beautiful names and funny names you thought of for me," she told the class. "But I realized that I liked my own the best, so I chose it again. Korean names mean something. Unhee means grace." "Grace? Grace in high," shouted Ralph. Everyone tried to say it. "In high, Unhee, Unha." Unhee said her name again, slowly and clearly, and soon the kids began to say it better, even Mr. Kokotis. They applauded Unhee's choice. "I was named after a flower," whispered Rosie. "Lots of American names have meanings too," Mr. Kokotis reminded everyone. When the class was dismissed, Unhee heard her new friend say goodbye. "Bye, Unhee. See you tomorrow." "Goodbye, Unhee." Unhee said goodbye to her new friends. The end.
You may share joys and sorrows by submitting them through the Google form found on the homepage of our website. Alternatively, you may send an email to me or to Reverend Eileen Riviat. These are our joys and sorrows that have been shared with us ahead of time. Barbara Versino shares that her mother died last Sunday. She was a loving and devoted mother, wife, and grandmother. Please keep Barbara, Rich, Jonathan, and Emma in your thoughts and prayers. Kathy Underwood requests thoughts and prayers for her sister Janet and nephew Joshua. Her sister's former partner, who was living with her due to some health issues, suffered a massive stroke in his brainstem. Her sister had to make the decision to take him off of life support, which she knows he would have wanted based on previous conversations. Rest in peace, Martin Sedilla. Carla Williams and Cheryl Mounts share that on Saturday, Carla's mother was 97 years young. Grateful for her love, courage, and sound advice. You live in our hearts always. And a joy from Diane Yost, celebrating her 40-year friendship with Susan Carlton. Diane says, "During the past months of my rehabilitation from a stroke, Susan has been stalwart and always kind. She embodies all the characteristics of a sister I wish I'd had. Susan, please know how treasured you are." We know these are not the only joys and sorrows that are on our hearts. Let's take a moment of quiet now to read to ourselves the joys and sorrows that have been added to the chat. We hold these together in care and tenderness. I invite you to say aloud the names of those who you are holding in your heart, those who are sick, those you are missing, and those who have died. As we let their names gather on the winds to be held in this community that knows no walls. We hold these as well as the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in our hearts. Together, we celebrate our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. I invite you to join me in an attitude of prayer and meditation with these words by our guest, the Reverend Karen Mooney. Weaver of love beyond our knowing and beyond our comprehension, visit us today in ways that bless our lives and our community. Help us to remember the web of our lives that connect us to both joy and sorrow, to the broken and the whole, to the imprisoned and the free, to those waiting and those who have arrived. Let our work be for justice and our prayer be for peace. In this time of great bending, may we remember to remain humble, that we see those in the center of our world and those who live on the edges as well. Teach us the ways of equity, the ways of gratitude, and the ways of forgiveness. Blessed be.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition.
This is a reading from Perseverance by Margaret Wheatley. She starts with a quote from Zen teacher Ezra Beda. The solution is never about fixing, but about staying, with the fear of helplessness and loss of control. Miss Wheatley continues, after we've tried and only failed, we usually want to get out of there as fast as we can, find a new project, new partner, new place, anything to forget our failure and frustration. Of course, even as we scamble for that new chance to feel success, we know there's no escape, that we take ourselves with us wherever we go. Yet how do we resist the compulsion to grasp after new things, to find security elsewhere? Anything to get out of the mess we're in. All we have to do is acknowledge that we're helpless, that things are not under our control. Simple. Some describe this as surrender or yielding or giving in. These aren't capacities we thought of as strengths, but they keep us in the turbulence. They enable us to stay. Ironically, we find the strength to stay by realizing that there's nothing we can accomplish by staying. And there we are, still in the middle of the river, hoping to be ready for what's next.
As we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Each week, we share half of what is collected through our offering with an organization chosen by the Social Justice Council from your nominations. The Council is still accepting nominations through July 31st for the 2021-2022 church year. You may find the nomination form in the newsletter or on our website under Social Justice. Today's offering will be shared with Asada's Daughters, which is a Black woman-led, young person-directed organization rooted in the Black radical tradition, aiming to deepen, escalate, and sustain the movement for Black liberation. They provide a lifeline of practical aid and moral support for youth. You can text to give, send in a check, or give from our website. If you send in a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
The point of this sermon is going to be, you are loved. Exactly as you are, no ifs, no buts, no maybes. You are loved wholly and completely. The principles by which we guide our lives acknowledge this. It is embedded in the words of support, of acceptance and belonging. These truths point to a deep well of love within which we are each held. Each of us is loved. In that love, we are called into relationship with the world. These words also of respect, compassion, responsibility are the fruits of being loved and show up in relationship. Loved enough to allow you to be in relationship. It sounds good, doesn't it? Love and belonging, acceptance and relationship. But remember, relationships are a two-way street. They ask you to use that love, that radical acceptance, to transform yourself and your community. No relationship is static. It is a balance. And balance doesn't mean frozen. Balance isn't, look, I made it. Balance instead is that state of constant motion and change. You are loved. You are in relationship. You are called to transform. You are loved. What a gift to love deeply enough to allow yourself to change and grow all throughout your life. This is a great message, and part of me wishes I could stop here, wishes that the changes we were asked to engage in the real world were things like trying tofu again. Really, it's not that bad. Attempting to live zero waste. Maybe it's possible. Attending a webinar on music as a healing art. Seriously, there are things that happen out there that are real. But really, what good relationship has ever not asked you to go the extra mile to give your very best? We all remember the story, right? The white woman in New York City's Central Park, so taken with her own discomfort at being corrected for walking her dog in a restricted area that she called the police, saying a black man was threatening her dog. Christian Cooper, a bird watcher, had told the woman she wasn't supposed to walk her dog there. He may have been annoyed when he said this. He may have used a tone in his voice. He may even stepped towards her as he spoke. But anything that you see on YouTube does not say that this man was threatening. But this woman's response was to call the police. I imagine that some part of her brain remembered, if I scream loudly enough, this person and their concerns will magically disappear. She knew in her bones that for hundreds of years, white women in this country have been protected from anything a black man does, no matter who is right or wrong, no matter the intent, no matter if it's real or fiction. For hundreds of years, black men have paid a high price for white comfort. Wow, that was horrible. I thought when I was reading this, and then I read this Karen, it was the first time that I had used the word Karen used as a code word for women who weaponized their own white privilege. I began hearing Karen used again and again. The Karen in Montana who coughed on a couple and during the pandemic. A Karen in California who called the police on her neighbor who was stenciling Black Lives Matter on their property. Karen in Pennsylvania who attacked waitstaff because she had to wait for a table to be seated. Wow. Can they do that to a particular name? Oh, is that right? I suppose maybe I should have asked the Richards in the room, but that's a different story. My response was not complicated. No one would want to be associated with this. These white women were acting as if their comfort, their ideas, their worldview was the only thing that mattered in the world. Every time I said my name, I felt like I was a traitor to all that I was actively working to change and dismantle. I began to ask people to call me Kay. a shortened, hopefully easy version of my name. I added a tagline to my email explaining I was standing in solidarity with this. Yes, people have to call this out. Yes, we need to make sure that people know that this behavior is abhorrent. It must be stopped. This was another layer of white privilege. White privilege that maybe went unnoticed because it didn't have a word associated with it. Language is so important. I even added a link to an Atlantic article that explained why Karen was the name. I felt awkward asking people to call me Kay, especially my family, but it didn't seem that big of a price for me to be able to let go of my name in order for something so complicated to be able to be named and eradicated. Eventually, I had one of those necessary conversations, and I was standing there and I felt like, I'm on the right side of history with this. Here I am. I might have even felt a little smug. Maybe a little bit like I was doing my part and showing up. Even as it dawned on me, this might not be a temporary thing. In Colorado, they're passing legislation called the Karen Act that would outlaw racially motivated 911 calls. I stood in that space. I felt uncomfortable about letting go of my name for good, but I believed that it was the right thing to do. Lord, help me when I think I know the right thing to do. Help me not to be arrogant in my ignorance. Now that is a dangerous prayer. In a national community organizing class, that prayer was answered. I got called out. The first day, online Zoom, we're introducing ourselves. The trainer, a black woman, asked, "Why Kay?" And I told her the story, probably with a little bit of pride. They said something like, "Really? Do you think that changing your name removes the privilege or experience that goes along with that name? Does it changing your name make you less white? Does changing your name change your history? You have lived in this world with that name and it fits as far as I can tell." I was stunned. And some part of me knew she was right, even though I didn't know why yet. I sat in that Zoom training for 5 more days. I changed my Zoom name there, and I began to wrestle for real this time. By day 3, I got what some of you might already know. I was being called out for being a Karen by changing my name from Karen to Kay. In changing my name, I was running away from the discomfort of my cultural history. This is unlike, I want to make sure that this is clear, this is unlike when our trans and queer friends change their names to acknowledge and reveal the internal difference in who they have always been. She was right. My name is Karen. I was brought up in America in the 1960s. We did something then, right? But we didn't eradicate racism. I was brought up with images of black people in sitcoms that told me that they were poor, and that was funny. I was brought up knowing my friend, a black boy, was stopped from dating a white girl in high school. I was brought up with news covering tragedies in black neighborhoods as if they were foreign countries. I was brought up with images and words and stories and products that said, "You are different." I was brought up to know and live as a Karen. And as such, I'm allowed to step away from my discomfort. I can shed my name and leave it behind. I can even get a little shine doing it. I might have known something was amiss if I had wrestled more deeply with why people sometimes rolled their eyes when I told them, when I asked them to call me Kay. I might have realized that my actions were off if I had allowed myself to really reflect on that Atlantic article, take in all of its meanings rather than just gather it as facts that were going to undergird the subtext of what I was living. That article points to Karen as the name because it was such a popular name in the 1960s. It perfectly describes white women who were brought up in that very particular time. We were taught that we were post-race, we were taught that everyone was equal, but that was all within the homogeny of white culture, white action, white privilege. The history that I learned in school, it didn't include the 1921 riots in Tulsa or anywhere else in the early 1900s. Didn't include the delivery of the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation to slaves did not happen in Texas until June 19th, 1865, 6 months after the war ended. It left out amazing inventors and scientists of colors. It left out courageous activists who planned and worked and changed our country. Karen is my name for a reason. I realize now that my discomfort was really calling attention to my internalized racism. The author and activist Glennon Doyle reminded me this summer that every white person who shows up and tells her truth is going to have to let her racism be called out. She will have to accept that others will disagree with how she's showing up and that they will have every right to disagree. She will need to learn to withstand people's anger, knowing that much of it is real, true, and necessary. She will need to accept that one of the privileges she's letting burn is her emotional comfort. She will need to remind herself that being called a racist is not actually the worst thing. The worst thing is privately hiding her racism to stay safe, liked, and comfortable while others suffer and die. There are worse things than being criticized. I am here to let you know and to remind myself that I am a product of my life. Racist thoughts show up in my world and sometimes even in my unwitting actions. It might not be true for any of you, but might also be worth examining. Even as we are loved and held in the fullness of life, we have been formed by our interactions in this world. This love calls me in to listen to this discomfort that I feel, not to bury it, but to lean into it and see what it is telling me and then change. Discomfort, then, is a great marker. It's a great marker in my life for what might need to be transformed. I might not be the only one. Do you ever feel that little niggle, that twinge, the sigh? Discomfort can point out the very places where things are not what we tell ourselves they are. The very place we are called to grow and to change. To actually affect change, we need to learn and reflect and act. One of the most critical issues of our time, especially in America, is racism. To be in relationship with my community around this means that I have to be learning, hearing what racism is for a white, middle-class, aging, progressive, Unitarian Universalist, community organizer, activist, what that looks like today. It is finding a place to reflect on how I see racism showing up in my life today. It means putting myself in the way of acting differently in situations that may bring up my racism and doing all of that again and again and again. Acting this way, we actually live in spirals in our life. We're going somewhere. Rather than being embedded in an unchanging pattern of a circle, we can experience so many things and do them differently. If we do only one or two of these things, if we only learn and act, nothing really shifts. In the case of my Karen, I learned from the articles in the news. I was acting on that knowledge, but I did not reflect deeply with other people about why I was doing what I was doing. I was too uncomfortable for that. That led me to be in a place where I was doing the same things I have always done, claiming the right to be comfortable rather than changing my internal narrative. I was running in circles. By being called out, I was given a gift, an opportunity to actually change, to be in relationship with communities I say I care about, with integrity. What if you had that opportunity to put yourself in the way of learning, reflecting, and acting to transform? A place where you would be able to take the learning you have engaged. As Unitarian Universalists, we pride ourselves on being lifelong learners. I know that you have podcasts on your phone, that you watch documentaries, that you read tons of books. But taking that learning and not just acting on it, but reflecting on it, to be able to reveal the deeper truths that are living within that popular veneer. Our principles call us into this continuing budding relationship with the world. To stay alive to this relational phase means we learn and grow throughout our lives. What if you engage that learning with a place to reflect on what it means to your actions? How what you are learning shows up in your life now. What if you had a space where you were maybe able to move out into the world with a different set of knowledge that allowed you to show up differently in your world? Would you take it? These places exist here. They are offered by your social justice teams. They are found in small groups. They are affirmed in the relationships you build in coffee hour. Do you use these? Are you showing up in the world as someone who lives into the principles of our faith, whose inner and outer actions proclaim the integrity that we say we value? To put ourselves in the way of transformation is to affirm that we have the ability to love so deeply that we are willing to shift ourselves, not demand that the world shifts for us. If we are alive to the story of our lives, we will be confronted with our shortcomings, our mistakes, our failures, whatever you want to call them, time and again. It doesn't matter how old you are. There is no finish line. If you are not actively seeing yourself, you have stopped being in relationship. The question is not if, but when we do something that's not aligned with our values. The gift then, because we are loved, we are not defined by that action, but by what we do next. I am no longer Kay. My name is Karen. It doesn't always feel comfortable. Indeed, when I'm talking to people, sometimes they'll say, "That Karen," and they go, "Ooh, sorry." I wish my mom had named me something less topical in this racially charged and changing world, but it is my name. I bear the baggage of the time, and I can only bring my experience, my blind spot, and my soul to this world. My Karenness might offer a way through, but it will only offer a way through if I'm honest about who it is that I am first. To know ourselves to be loved deeply means we have the ability to admit when we are wrong so that we can change ourselves. We take the first step in making the change here in our hearts and minds. We take that first step so that we can shift, so that the world doesn't have to shift for us. The amazing thing is that it's the first step that is the hardest. That third and fourth step where we already smoothly feel like we know what's going on, those are easier. But that first step, that is the biggest. And the first step is stopping, knowing what we've learned, stopping, taking action, stopping, and reflecting on what all of that means. Learn, yes. Act, yes. And reflect on all of those so that we together can move in spirals throughout this world, growing every single time we come into different actions. It is never, ever over. We are never final, but we are here together, making this space to be able to be brave and take this action to reflect and learn together. Peace, peace all.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
As we extinguish our chalice, please join in saying the words printed on your screen. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
These words from Reverend Joseph Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world, changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, and loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we as a people of faith be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. I look forward to seeing you on the journey, friends.